Hey there, happy Tuesday, and thank you so much for joining me for today's messaging mini class. All month long, I'm talking about content creation and content strategy. And if you've missed any of the previous topics, I've got one of the links I think up here in the description, and you can go look at the videos for what we've been talking about so far. But last week, I was talking about how to create a content strategy. Really, it's a content plan, right? And hopefully by now you understand that really when it comes to creating content, putting it out there, it's about sharing your message. It's about doing your marketing. But you might still be thinking, great, I get it, but how do I come up with content ideas, or what types of content do I choose, right? So over the next couple weeks, I'm going to tackle both of those topics. And today we're starting with the types of content that you can create and how to choose which one works for you. Hey, Tanya. Hey, Janet. Anita, thank you guys so much for joining me live today. It's so great to have you here. And if you are watching and you don't know me or don't know me well yet, let me just introduce myself real quick before we dive in. My name is Carrie Price. I'm a brand messaging coach, helping ambitious service-based business owners find and own the words to stand out, be heard, and make your message roar. And nothing makes your message roar like putting it out there and letting people find you, right? So today, let's talk about the types of content that you might be producing. Sorry, let me get situated here with my tea. This mug's really hot. The types of content that you might want to create and how to choose what would work for you, right? What's going to help you make your message roar? That means having a message that's relatable to your ideal client, one of a kind so you stand out in the market, actionable. I mean, putting out content and doing marketing makes your message actionable and allows you to be reliable, showing up as the expert that you are every single time. So, hey, Helen, so good to have you here. Thank you for joining me live today. So let's recap, because I think I talked about this last week. Let's recap what your content should be doing for you, right? So as you're creating your content plan, as you're thinking about what you want to be putting out there, hey, Elizabeth, thank you for joining me. What should your content be doing for you? Well, most simply, your content is building your brand. Now, your brand is your reputation as it's perceived in the mind of the market. It's whatever people think about you. You control and shape that through your marketing, through your content, which is the delivery of your message. So whatever content you're creating needs to be establishing you as an expert, letting people know why they need you, or if they know somebody who might need you, right? They might not be your ideal client, but they might know somebody who is, and allows you to set yourself apart from everybody else. Because the last thing you want to do is put out content that just blends in and sounds like everybody else, because then the perception that people have won't be uniquely you. So I can't tell you how many times I, read content or hear people talk about what they do. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I've just forgotten your name, because the 5 people who I just met before you who do what you do all sound exactly the same. So you want to make sure that the message that you're communicating is truly unique and one of a kind. So remember, that's the O in roar, right? It needs to be one of a kind, but it needs to be relatable to your ideal client. So let's talk about, there's 3 main types of content, and there's subtypes, but let's talk about the 3 main types and how each one may or may not be the right choice for you. They're all going to come with their pros and cons, because let's face it, we could do nothing but put content out every day. I mean, there are so many options for us for putting out content. But you need time to service your clients. You need time to do sales and other things, right? Your marketing, your content that you're putting out there is what's keeping you top of mind in the market. It's helping people remember you when they're ready to address the problem that they have, right? One of my recent clients, she's been following me for over a year. But my content that I put out there kept me top of mind for her. And when she was ready to work on her message, she reached out and here I was. So that's a goal for your content that you're putting out there. So be thinking about the context of your content, right? Like what's the goal, what you're trying to achieve, and make sure that it's always on brand, on message for you. But now when you're choosing the type, there's three main types, right? You can write content, you can do video content, or you can do audio content. Kind of anything you do, it's either going to be written, audio, or video, right? So let's talk about a few of those and some pros and cons, and then how to help you judge which one might be the right one for you. There's two key questions that you want to ask to help you determine that, okay? But first, let's talk about various types of written content and some pros and cons. Written content includes blog posts, written social media posts, right? Might have an image with it, might not. Any advertising you're doing, if you do what I'll call offline traditional media, right? Whether that's a magazine ad or a billboard or whatever it is that you might do that's a written form, there's a lot of different ways that that shows up. Now, the pros of written content, it's generally one of the cheapest to produce. Although when we talk about video and audio, those can be inexpensive, but cheapest in terms of time sometimes, and production, right? You can sit down and write your content and get it out there. It's free to put a Facebook post up. Even creating your own blog. Yes, you've got hosting and all of that, but you've probably got a website anyway. Writing content can be fairly quick and inexpensive. So that's one of the pros of written content. Now, a con for written content, especially the longer form content like a blog post or writing an article, is that some people don't consider themselves a good writer. Now, you don't have to be a good writer. This is one of the things I really want to help you sort of bust the myth around being a good writer. What's important is that you have a clear message, and your message helps you write the content, right? That's going to be the same with your audio and video as well. So you don't have to be a good writer. And don't get hung up on, is it perfect grammar? Okay, yes, there are grammar police out there, and I will be the first to admit that when I read anything, my natural inclination is kind of an editing hat, but that comes from documentation writing, copywriting, and copy editing. My brain just looks for that, but that's not what I care about when I'm reading somebody's content. Do you use the right verb tenses, commas, complete sentences? I don't care. What I care about is that your message comes across, okay? Tanya says, after reading so many comments over the weekend regarding Helsinki, I would say that commenting and interacting can in some ways be creating content. Yes, absolutely. Anytime you are writing a response, right? So whether that's you're commenting on social media or you're commenting on someone's article or commenting on someone's blog post, you are responding in writing. So even if you don't feel like you're a good writer, you probably need to get comfortable enough to be able to interact and engage in a written form, right? Doesn't mean you have to be an excellent writer, but you do want to get good at being able to clearly articulate your thoughts. Doesn't have to be perfect grammar. If you're responding in English and English isn't your first language, like it's okay, right? Keeping in mind, there are trolls and there are people who are going to care about that, but like most people don't care about that, okay? So those are some of the pros and cons of written content. Now, I forgot to mention one of the pros. You often can get a ton of exposure by writing for other people, whether that's submitting an article to get published in an online magazine or even a traditional published magazine, somebody else's blog. Oftentimes what they're looking for is written pieces. So figure out how to get your message communicated in words, and it actually can open up a lot of doors for you. Okay, Elizabeth says, I have the opposite problem. My writing tends to be more formal. This is a very common problem for a lot of business owners because we learn to write grammatically correct in school. And then depending on what kinds of jobs you may have had before your business, it was more formal communication, right? Especially if you come from a corporate environment. I come from a technical environment, so it's much more formal writing. And so, Elizabeth, for you, that's going to change and start to get so much easier as you complete your messaging development. Sierra shared that with me. She always struggled with writing, feeling like it was more formal and a little bit more like kind of in the lane, right? That like everyone thinks they need to write. But after she got her message developed, her content flowed so much more easily, but because it was on message and she had all the words to use and knew how to talk about what she wanted to talk about, that her writing got easier and more comfortable and less formal, not in an unprofessional way, right? If you read any of Sierra's blog posts, still very professional, but it comes more naturally for her. And so, Elizabeth, you're going to get the benefit of that as you work through your messaging. But that is a very common problem for people. So if you either don't feel like you're a good writer or you feel like you're too formal in your writing, it probably means that you need to work on your messaging, because once you have that in place, that tells you how to talk, how you want people to feel, and the words to use, right? All of that. Yeah, Elizabeth says, yay, her blogs are great. It also helps if I talk stuff out and then transcribe it. Elizabeth, that's excellent. And that is a perfect segue for talking about video. And this applies to audio as well, but I actually do recommend that for people who are struggling with writing is record yourself talking. Now you can do that as either audio or video, but why not take advantage if you're going to talk about a topic and jump on a Facebook Live or record yourself for a video for YouTube and repurpose that or be able to use that as original video content. And then Elizabeth, just like you said, you can transcribe it or at the very least just listen back to yourself talking and pull out the snippets that you want to put into writing. This happens a lot when I'm working with clients on a coaching call. We'll be talking through something and I'll be like, okay, just explain that to me, right? In your words, just don't worry about the wordsmithing it. Just like get it out and talk it out. And when they're done, and I record all the coaching calls, I say, okay, I want you to go back and just listen to what you just said. Because what you just said is definitely what you want to be like putting out in your message. And half the time you don't even realize that you're using certain phrases or certain terminology or the way that you describe it. If you just naturally talk it out, the most authentic message comes out of you, right? And then you're able to capture that, put it in writing, and use it in different ways. So it's a great way to express yourself without getting bogged down in structuring your sentences properly, right? How many of us talk? Look, even me, I stop in the middle of a sentence, change thoughts, whatever, but I can go back and either transcribe my videos or listen back to them and pull snippets of information out that are more of that free flowing thought that wouldn't have come to me necessarily as naturally if I sat down to write it. So it just depends if you're a verbal processor or a written processor, right? Like, do you process better when you write things out or when you talk it out? Hey, Sarah, so good to see you. Thanks for joining me live today. So videos, let's talk about some pros and cons of videos, because I know there are some of you right now that are going, oh, I really don't want to do video, right? Let's be honest. So 2 years ago, before I started doing videos, I was in that boat. I was in the camp of like, nope, don't want to do video. Like, I hate the way I look on camera. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so what if I stumble or make a mistake or lose my place or whatever, right? And I think I've shared this story before, but in case you haven't heard it, the very first time that I went to create, like, it was a 2-minute video. It ended up being only a 2-minute video. I literally, no lie, practiced for 2 hours, recording myself, watching it, hating it, deleting it. Recording myself, watching it, hating it, deleting that. I did that for 2 hours. And ultimately, I was just like, never mind, the next take, it is what it is. And it wasn't perfect and it was fine. And people completely resonated with it. And like, I'm my biggest critic, right? Just like you are your biggest critic. So the reason that video is gaining so much popularity, I mean, not only are all the platforms encouraging it, we've always, well, not always, but we've had YouTube for a long time, and now we have Facebook Live. You can go live on Twitter. You now can go live on Instagram and do longer videos on Instagram. LinkedIn has native video. Everybody's really embracing video as a content type, right? Here's why it's such a good thing. So, oh, okay, here's an example. I'll just illustrate it with a story. So when somebody, let's say you're chatting with somebody and somebody makes a comment. This happened to me last week. Somebody made a comment. They were congratulating me on something, but I wasn't sure like if they were like being honest or if they were if there was a little bit of like snarkiness in there, right? And I chose to believe it was just an honest comment that they made. But you know how when you read something, you're interpreting the intention behind the words. And if you don't know a person well, you read it and you might process it differently. You might take offense to something they say when that's not what they meant. Or you read into it just with a different tone or personality than what they intended, right? On video, your intention comes across because your voice inflections, your body language, people get to see you, hear exactly how you want that message to be heard, where you want the emphasis, where you're trying to be funny and maybe that doesn't come across in writing, right? Your personality comes through on video. So when you're looking to make your message roar and you want to be relatable to your ideal client, part of that is they're trying to see if you guys are a good personality fit, right? And so what better way to do that when you can't meet in person than to let them see you on video? So over the last 2 years, I now have gone from completely shying away from video. Like literally I was like, nope, never going to do it, to loving video. And some days I look for an excuse. It's like, I want to just pop on and I want to talk to my community or reach out to somebody. And I want to do that via video. So what can I talk about? So I now fully embrace it. I've been live every week, every Tuesday at 11 a.m. I think for over a year and a half. I think for a while I was inside my group and now they're on my page, but I've been going live every week for over a year and a half. And fully embracing and loving being able to do that. Now, not everybody's comfortable with that, so find places where you can practice that. Inside my own group, the Messaging Den, you can go live at any time. I ask that you keep it under 10 minutes, but don't worry about coming in with a structured topic to talk about. Come in and practice, share your introduction, get comfortable introducing yourself on camera. Just get comfortable with the technology of figuring out, are you going live from your phone or from your computer or whatever that is, right? So find safe places to do that. There are lots of Facebook groups that let you do that. And if you're really not comfortable starting with that, you can create your own secret Facebook group and go live and practice in there. You do need to have one other person join you to create the group, but you can remove them if you really want a solo place. But you can create a secret group, practice there. But my recommendation to you is not to overthink that. Because in addition to live video, you can also do pre-recorded video, right? And I will tell you, I actually really suck at pre-recorded video. So when I share that story with you that I was trying to create a 2-minute video and it literally took me 2 hours of like recording it and like ending and whatever, all pre-recorded videos, my recovering perfectionist tendencies rear its ugly head. And so I have a hard time not wanting it to be perfect. So even if I record it in one take, then there's editing, there's post-process editing, right? There are free tools to do that. There's paid tools. But if you're embracing Facebook Live, it's still like really quick and easy, right? To me, that's faster than writing content because I can do a Facebook Live. But if I'm doing a pre-recorded content, especially like for my program videos, that takes me days because I like outline what I want to talk about. I record and I might have to record multiple times because, you know, I missed something and I want to do a retake. And then I have to do all the editing. So pre-recorded videos to me actually take longer. Now, if I could just embrace doing it like a Facebook Live and letting it be imperfect, it probably would be easier. But that for me is the con of video, right? Oh, Janet says you can also share a live video with yourself only or with specific friends. Janet, thanks for that reminder. You can control your privacy settings so that you're the only person that sees that content. Janet, that's a great addition. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, so true. So that's pros and cons of video, right? Like, could be really easy if you can just like jump online and embrace it. If you have perfectionist tendencies, pre-recorded videos might take you a little bit longer, more time, money, and effort, but very powerful in terms of allowing your recipients, your ideal clients, to connect with you. Okay. Audio is very similar to video, except you don't have to be on screen, right? So the pros of that is you could have outlined notes and read it and not worry about making eye contact. Although I always have notes when I do Facebook Lives, and I don't mind looking down at them, and I let you guys know I have notes because I don't want to miss anything. So there's a little bit of benefit there from audio. And yes, people can hear your voice inflection and you hear your personality come through. And so that might be a good option for you. Now, there's very few, I mean, you can share an audio like directly to Facebook or Twitter or whatever. The sharing is a little less natural than like Facebook Live or posting to YouTube and then sharing a link. But there's tools that let you do that, right? Anchor.fm is a site where you can for free share your audio files, sort of like a podcast if you don't want like an official podcast, although it can share then to iTunes for you and other things like that. So you can create a regular podcast, or you can just mix in doing an audio sometimes instead of video. And I don't know if Facebook Live still lets you, it might still be from your phone. I haven't done it in a while, but Facebook Live from your phone, you used to be able to, if anyone knows this, let me know. You used to be able to just do audio. So you can record a live without showing your video, and it just uses your profile image, right, as the image for your live. So that's an option. So again, if you're uncomfortable being on camera, get over that. Like, find ways to help yourself get more comfortable. But until then, maybe you want to embrace audio. Similar to video, though, you might have some post-production editing and things like that if you are turning that into a podcast. So the time, effort, and money that goes with that is that trade-off, right? So that's sort of just ways to think about the pros and cons of writing, video, and audio. But let's talk about really what the two main questions you should be asking yourself to know which is the right one for you. Now, the caveat that I'm going to say with this is one type will not work for everybody. Like, you can't just do videos because not everybody watches videos, right? And maybe you can just do written, but you're losing an opportunity for people to see you and interact with you and have see your personality come through, right? So you can repurpose things, and I'm going to talk about that more in just a moment. But let's talk about what you might choose as your main primary type of content that you want to create, right? Two big questions. The first one is, what kind of content are you going to like to create? I see a lot of people who go from never doing a video to saying, I'm going to do Facebook Live every day for 30 days. If you've never done a video, you're probably going to have a really hard time doing a Facebook Live every day for 30 days. By about day 14, you're going to peter out. If you're lucky, you make it that far. And maybe it will be the thing that will be a catalyst for you. But like, people go to extremes, right? So try it out. Try out the different ways, but don't overdo it to a pace that you can't keep up. I talked about that last week in creating your content strategy. Don't create a strategy or a plan you cannot sustain. Because remember, the last R in Make Your Message Roar is about being reliable. Whatever you do, whatever the frequency is and the type of content, you want to show up consistently every single time, okay? But think about what kind of content you generally like to create. Do you prefer videos, or do you really like to write? Let's call that for the anchor content, right? So like this Facebook Live has a lot of content in it, and I delivered it via video, but it's going to be a blog post that will also be written. It will also be a series of individual social media posts where I can share out tidbits from it. But my anchor content, where I start in my creation process, is Facebook Live. For you, you might anchor and start with a blog post because you generally like writing, and that lets you work all your thoughts out. And then maybe from that, you do some quick Facebook Lives to share some tidbits, or maybe there were 5 things that you covered in the written post and you want to recap it in the video. So you can still repurpose and do it, but think about like where your natural creative tendencies are and what you like to produce. But maybe more importantly than that, it's what your ideal client is going to respond to. If you love to create video and your audience hates to watch video, then maybe that's not the right choice for you, at least not as a solo or anchoring piece of content, right? Similarly, if you love to write really long and detailed blog posts and people don't like to read long things, have ways, maybe break that up into smaller pieces, or especially when you share that out on social media. Then what's the number? 2,893 characters on a Facebook post opens into a new tab when you click see more. I personally don't like to consume long content on social media. I would rather you give me an excerpt and drive me to your blog post. Like, I expect to read long content there. I don't expect to read long content on social media. If I click see more, if it opens in a new tab, I close that and never read it. So that's just me. That's not everybody. But what does your ideal client like to consume? Do they like shorter, written posts where they can get a good piece of information, take action on it, or make them think about something and then move on? Do they like to consume beefier, deeper content, and so maybe blogging is better for you? Or do they enjoy audio or video because they can listen to that? Even if it's a video, they can listen to it while they're doing something else. So as much as you think about the content you like to produce, it's probably more important to think about what your audience, your ideal client, not everybody, but what your ideal client prefers to receive in the way of content, and what's going to help them know, like, and trust you, right? I get a lot of people interested in working with me, clients who reach out because they've seen me on video, and it reaffirms for me that video works for me and my ideal clients because they're looking to make that connection. But maybe that's not something that your ideal clients respond to, and that's okay. You can still do video, but maybe that's not your anchor content, right? Tanya says you blog. Great question. You caught me, Tanya. We're building the blog out right now, and we've been working on the design and some of the back end stuff, and it will be launching soon. So I blog. It's just not public yet as we're getting some of the back end stuff going. Okay, so whatever you do create, written, video, audio, repurpose that across the other types. That'll help you reach out and appeal maybe to more people and allow them to consume your content. Adding subtitles to your videos is a way to get a video in a written format, right, without writing a blog post so that people can read your video if they're not listening to it or unable to listen to it. So that's a good way to do that as well. But whatever you create, consider putting that in different formats. People want to consume your information in different ways. Tanya says, what do you think of doing and including an audio file with your written blog post? Tanya, that's a great question. I actually see people who've done that. So whether it's their email or it's their email that links to the blog, there's often a link that says, if you'd prefer to listen, here's a link to the audio file. So if that's something for you that you like to produce and you think that your audience would be interested in the audios, by all means do that. Yeah, Rather than listen, click here. If you'd rather listen than read, click here. Yeah, I totally know people that do that. Same thing with the videos though, too. So like all my Facebook Lives will go to the blog, and I won't have the transcript, but I'll have sort of the written recap of everything. So, if people prefer to read it. Now you can extract the audio from your videos and also provide that as an audio file, which is on my plan to do. I haven't done it yet, but it's in my task list of things that I want to do with every Facebook Live is I want to export that out, and I'll be using Anchor FM that I mentioned earlier on this live. And, so that there's an audio only version for people who, I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm in the shower or doing dishes or whatever. I've always got an audio going. If it's not an audio book, then it's a podcast. So if you know, the people that you're attracting also like to listen to the audio and you want to make that available, I think that's awesome. Hey, Cindy. So glad you're here. Cindy says, I was here, but on a different page. Oh, yeah, because I shared that in the group. Yeah, I can't see those comments when I'm live, Cindy. But so thanks for jumping over here. I'm so glad that these points have been helpful for you. Let me just wrap up by saying, you know, we're talking about like repurposing your content, creating that Facebook Live, and then you can turn that into a blog post, turn that into social media posts, like snippets of videos, like all kinds of things that you can do with that, right? And I actually have a guest expert coming into the messaging den this Thursday. She's a content strategist. Her name is Linda Lilo Eno. I always I always want to say her name a little backwards, but she is coming into the group on Thursday to share her training, how to turn a single piece of content into 20, 30, or 50 pieces of content. She is the repurposing queen. If you are wanting to leverage every piece of content that you create into multiple pieces of content, then you are not going to want to miss that. That's going to happen in my group, the Messaging Den. Just go to the messagingden.com or search for the Messaging Den right here on Facebook. That is happening Thursday. I believe it's at 5 p.m. Eastern, and the replay will be available. I'm looking forward to this training. I feel like I've got a pretty good grip on how to repurpose my content, but I know I'm going to learn a lot more from Linda's training coming this Thursday. Sarah says she's awesome. Yeah, Linda is amazing. So come and join us in the Messaging Den if you would like access to that free training as well. And next week, for my Facebook Live right here on this page at 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm going to be talking about how you can create, well, let me say that another way. I'm going to be sharing with you how to have a never-ending stream of content ideas, and it's probably something you learned as a kid. So that's what next week is going to be all about, the never-ending source for content ideas every single day. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you join me back here next week at 11 a.m. and we'll be talking all about that. Monica asked, which software are you using for your lives? I use Ecamm Live. Love it. If you're on a Mac, it's only for Mac, but if you're on a Mac, I highly recommend it. All right. If you have any other questions about content creation or content strategy, drop them in the comments below, or inside the Messaging Den, I have a pinned post where you can share your questions there. So I can fit that into, we've got 2 more weeks of July lives, all focused on content creation and content strategy. So I can make sure to cover those topics for you, get those questions answered. But join me live next week for a never-ending supply of content ideas, and I will see you then. Thank you, Anita, for being here. I'm so glad this was helpful for you. In the meantime, don't settle for sounding like everybody else. Make sure you stand out. You get heard. Make your message roar. Have a great day. Bye.